Hello everyone, welcome back to Xcatcher Trading. Today's video I wanted to cover candlestick patterns as well as trend lines, how to draw these up on a chart, and looking at real market examples. So you see here on the left chart I have Blue Apron Holdings pulled up on the chart. APRN is the ticker. And I'm going to give you a real quick example of how you would go about drawing your trend lines and some important things to keep in mind. So always when you draw trend lines, you want to connect closes of your candles. That's very important. You don't want to be using the wicks typically when you're drawing these trend lines, as opposed to, say, a Fibonacci retracement, which you may learn about later on the channel, or if you decide to go do that research yourself. Here you can see this close. We're going to draw a trend line from that top after the initial pop in volume we see down here, nearly 24 million in volume. And let's take a look at that. And again, you want to go right down. You really want to ride that second top where you see it come down. And then, of course, at the bottom, you see a couple of green bars, not in an uptrend, but with a similar sentiment to the bullish side by side. And then you get that initial pop up. A little bit of a bearish sign here with the long wick going up top, but an ultimate continuation grabbing the top Bollinger Band for a short time while trending in this upper channel. And with low volume, you can see the volume petering out. So if you're holding calls, you would probably want to be getting out here as you see that last candle kind of dying off in volume, and that next day initially more selling pressure and overall less volume than even back here. Larger volume in here, but overall fading. You can see downtrend in volume as we head higher, and short correction, and what I would consider a bear trap, a long wick doji to the downside, which if we look over here, that is our bullish hammer. And ultimately after hitting that hammer, we start to peel up higher. We get a rejection off the top as well. You see some contractionary effects from the Bollinger Bands, and ultimately this pattern did break bullish. It could have, what you would want to watch out for is that break of that center Bollinger. That would give you a signal that, hey, maybe we're going to jump down to the blue, but no, we're going to continue riding the green for a time. Now, as we start to gain volume here, looking on the lower chart, getting up to those highs, and ultimately the volume slows down as we fall back to support at those previous highs here on the Bollinger, rallying a little bit further, what we would call kind of a spinning top candlestick pattern, which actually isn't on the chart, but is essentially when you have a doji candle that closes very close to where the opening closes, and you have a long wick extending in both directions. And you can see that pretty clearly here. And ultimately ends up falling down, giving way with that sign of weakness. Coming back here to the center Bollinger, retesting that as a resistance, and very hard to see, but then the volume really gets in big time to the downside. Ultimately get that test of the blue lower Bollinger here. Finally, before we get a decently sized the Morningstar reversal here, that should be, yep, right here, Morningstar, get a little bit of a engulfing candle as well if you interpret it that way. But, you know, you still got these dojis down here kind of separating the whole situation. And as we get up to those highs, now, just as we respected the Bollinger as a resistance before, now that we've broken above, respecting that well as a support as we come back up to that top green Bollinger, still respecting it well as a resistance. and coming down, cutting in about half, really getting all the way to the bottom, all the way down to support before being pushed back up to the halfway mark, showing those signs of that reversal, those long wicks down to support on the Bollinger. And then again, long wick off the top of the Bollinger, you see, in the very similar fashion off of the bottom here. And ultimately that weakness again creeps in as we head higher to that top of the Bollinger, start diverging, and ultimately cut through and consolidate between the center Bollinger and the bottom. And you see I have a trend line drawn up here, very simple channel drawn out, as well as the Bollingers respecting that relatively well. As you see, we resisted that center Bollinger quite well. We got a false break here on volatility near a market open. First 4 hours of the trading day, it looks like last 4 as well, just completely flipping, keeping it down in that channel and also below that center Bollinger. We get that long wick down to support from back here that ultimately got pushed, which I would consider a bear trap. This fell all the way through that Bollinger, really making people think that it was going to drop off, and it ultimately pushed up here to nearly test that center Bollinger resistance and rejects one last time before building up and ultimately breaking through that center Bollinger and riding the green for a short time, finally eking up to where I have a second standard deviation channel here that I will be covering in a later video. And we see our long wicks to the upside signaling downside near the tops, and ultimately it knifes down pretty hard as people would be quick to take their profits off the table at these levels. Looking like a very opportunistic short opportunity there, potentially buying puts. Just pretty clear indications of bearish trend incoming from this very fierce rally. You see how hard we had dropped off the Bollinger, very aggressive price behavior, and engulfing all the way back into the center, really saving it off the lows that next 4-hour candle. And you can see now, similar to back here, we're respecting that center Bollinger as resistance. And I would be watching this center line, seeing if there's a potential break on the table of decent volume and distance. Again, you don't want to get trapped in a candle like that there. Really want to get those solid breaks of resistance on good volume as well. I hope to see you guys in the next video. There's a link in the description to both the charts on screen with some more information, and there will also be a Discord link in the description if you'd like to join our Discord. Thanks so much. Good night.